Greetings, this is Rick Ruby, the Nostalgic Catholic, with another Isaac Asimov short story review. And this time it's in the Galaxy, the October 1965 issue of Galaxy. And it looks like, it's the 15th anniversary because it started October of 1950, and now we're October of 1965. So it's the 15th anniversary, and it's got all these little stars, one of them indicating that it will be Asimov. And indeed, it even has the name of the story here, Isaac Asimov, and it's called Founding Father. We will see this again in the table of contents. Right there, Founding Father by Isaac Asimov, page 165. Okay. Now, all of that said, there is one more thing. He gets the cover. There's a story about that before I look at that cover in a little more detail so we know what we mean here. And the story, by the way, after coming out there, gets collected into By Jupiter and other stories. So, now I'm going to read from a little bit here the introduction of how that story came about. So, I wasn't doing it all primarily for money, you understand, but my family was growing and I wasn't going to throw money away either. So there was again that much less urge to return to fiction. Frederick Pohl, who had succeeded Horace Gold as editor of Galaxy, tried to lure a story out of me in March 1965 by sending me a cover painting he intended to run and asked me to write a story about it. You have the cover, he said, so it will be easy. No, it wasn't. I looked at the cover, which featured a large, sad, space-helmeted face with several crude crosses in the background, and with a space helmet balanced on each cross. I could make nothing of it. I would have told Fred this, but he was an old friend, and I didn't want to break his heart with the knowledge that there was something I couldn't do. So I made a supreme effort and wrote the following, which appeared in the August 1965 Galaxy. Well, it's actually October, and I think what may have happened is how these things come out a month or two ahead of the actual month printed on the schedule on a magazine. For example, his first story that came out in the March 1939 Amazing was actually released and on the newsstands in January of 1939. So this could be a couple months before October, which would be August. So you would have seen it in a Galaxy that comes out in August, but the date on the magazine does say October. This is the magazine, and it all makes it clear these are all new stories by all your old favorites in Galaxy. So, these are all supposed to be new publications. So, he has that description of a painting. Well, in and amongst all these stars and so forth, here's our space helmeted figure. I guess it's Sadness. It looks more like Determined to me, but okay, whatever. And there in the background on this rather plain, blah, flat planet, there's these sort of little crosses here and kind of in the background with little space helmets put on top of them. Some of them are a little hard to see, but I think you can kind of get the idea. So there's the cover art. He does have the cover. Well, let's see what we actually have in the story. Strangely enough, there is no artwork actually connected with the story where it's found, which is not typical for most of these. Well, maybe it is. Yeah, actually, sometimes there's artwork. Let's see, I saw one here. Yeah, they might have an artwork like this one's got an artwork, but I don't think this one has an artwork. I think it's just other than the cover of the magazine. Okay. And there's a little tiny squib that does not get collected into By Jupiter, and it simply says, 5 of them had come to the planet. 4 were dead. The other had only one chance left to live forever. Okay. Founding father. Actually, he's not even responsible for that title. Apparently, he had a different title for that. In fact, I think we go back to this book and it lists, it talks about the idea he had for the covers. And so, now, hold on, let's go back to where is that? Let's go. 136. So it says, yeah, Fred Pohl changes title more frequently than most editors do, and in some cases drove me to distraction by doing so. In this case, though, my own title was The Last Tool, and once again, the editorial change was for the better, so I kept Founding Father. I hate when Fred changes me for the better, but he won't stop. Okay. So, Founding Father, and yeah, it's not his title, but somebody who decided that was better than what he could come up with, which was The Last Tool. So, what has happened is the spacecraft with the 5 guys on it is very beat up. A lot of things have happened all at once to make it go very, very wrong and things be in a very bad way. So what happens is, it's the best they can do is just land it intact, still alive, and such that they're not going to die right away. So, but what have they got here? What have they got? Well, they've landed on a world that apparently has an atmosphere with ammonia in it. I don't know. Apparently that is seen as something unusual in this story. Until we surveyed a few hundred planets from around the immediate area of the galaxy, I don't know what's going to be considered typical or not. Oxygen may be very, very atypical, or it may be typical. You know, ammonia, carbon dioxide, if anything, seems the most typical of all. Certainly, if we look in our planets, Venus is, thick to death with carbon dioxide. Mars has carbon dioxide, and that seems to be all over the place. So we have all this carbon dioxide, and that's the most common, but oxygen, well, we assumed oxygen planets would be fairly common, and ammonia planets would be like hyper scarce. They actually find one and they land on it because it was the only planet handy to land on. They're crippled spacecraft. So they've landed on this place. It'll never take off. There's just too much wrong with it and no way to fix it. But at least they have some time and they can try to do something about maybe terraforming the planet. They make a number of attempts. They try purifying the soil, purifying some of the water. The plants apparently that it has actually release this ammonia into the atmosphere and are very attuned to it and would probably start to wither away if they didn't find ammonia in the atmosphere. But this is probably one of the most depressing stories he's ever written, I think, because towards the end of the story, 3 of these guys are dead. They have names, but they're just names, really. Anyway, 3 of them have already died after about 5 or 6 years, depending upon, well, apparently the years on this planet are slightly longer than an Earth year, but about 5 of their Earth years or 6 of ours, their planetary years are 6 of ours. Their life supplies are running out. Their health is fading. The ammonia is starting to somehow leak inside the spacecraft. I'm not sure how. Can't solve that. Won't solve that. And 3 of the guys have died. Another one, a 4th, is dying. And he will soon, in fact, die. And then he does. And then you got this one guy left. And he's got nothing left he can do but bury his compadres out on this planet, putting little crosses over their dead bodies and helmets on the crosses and stuff like that. That's the legend of the cover. And finally, well, he can't exactly bury himself, but he probably makes himself as much like the others as he can. And the thing was, it turned out they couldn't grow plant life of the earth kind, or at least an earth-making kind. But apparently, because they didn't have the right soil or something, and then it turns out the dead bodies of the 5 guys rot and somehow provide the right substances and fertilizer, nutrients, and so forth for simple plant life that will create oxygen, destroy ammonia, change the whole force of the planet, and ultimately end up terraforming the whole planet long after all 5 guys are dead. So they won't be around to see it happen, but at least the last of them could know that it would happen. And so I guess that makes the last guy who knows of this, who buried his compadres out there rather than doing something else with them, a kind of, between putting them out there and then ending with himself out there as well, he has made himself a kind of founding father of a planet that will one day be habitable for human beings. Hence the title, Founding Father. Well, but what is it? They go there, they die, their dead bodies terraform the planet for people coming along, I don't know, 100,000, millions of years later. How long does it take? I don't know. It's never clear in the story. So it's kind of a depressing story, all said and told. It's not very long, at least, but I don't know. I find it kind of discouraging, but it is kind of nice that he has the cover. Not that he wanted this cover. It was given as here's a cover. Make a story for this. What do I do with that? Well, that's what he did with that. Well, Mr. Cole, that's what you get for asking him to do something like this. He has to come up with something, and he'll do it. And there it is. Well, that is Founding Father by Isaac Asimov. Thanks for listening.